Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Careers in the Arts program. We have a special program today diving into the therapeutic power of the arts. Before we get started, Sing for Hope's Paul Foundation Young Artist Resource Lab Careers in the Arts series is made possible by a generous multi-year grant from the Beatrice and Raymond Paul Foundation. So thank you to our friends at the Paul Foundation for making this conversation possible. My name is Patrick Connolly. I'm our host and moderator today. I'm a Sing for Hope staff member, but I'm also a working pianist and singer. And after years of playing for assisted living communities and older adult communities and similar, I discovered Sing for Hope in 2018, which soon had me playing in New York City schools and community centers. And then during the COVID-19 pandemic, my role with Sing for Hope grew into supporting their programming in an admin position. But even as that work has grown, I've continued to pursue the arts and play in the New York piano bar community and grow as an artist. So all this to say that this Careers in the Arts series has kind of special meaning to me. In this program specifically talking about the therapeutic power of the arts. So with me today, we have four incredibly unique and valuable guests. Our own Sing for Hope artist partner, esteemed violinist Victoria Patterson is with me, who has directed our Department of Public Health and Wellbeing since, correct me if I'm wrong, Victoria, 2022. And also we have therapists from Victoria, don't forget to. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it was like late 2021, but yeah, something around like that. Yeah.
Then we also have three therapists from FAR Therapeutic Arts, all with unique specialties. So I'll introduce that briefly, just as FAR Therapeutic Arts and Recreation is a nonprofit based in the Metro Detroit area, which I also want to flag as my hometown. I just want to throw that out there. I grew up in Rochester. So I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point too. But they offer music, art, dance, movement, and recreational therapy for children and adults with a variety of special needs diagnoses. So to get us started, I'd first just love to hear from each of you to just sort of introduce yourselves and share a bit of your story and how you came to be doing the work you're doing. And I feel like a great place to start would be with Pamela, who is the president of FAR Therapeutic Arts and Recreation. So Pamela, if you want to kick things off and kind of share a little bit of your story, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, thank you. We are just so honored to be able to share what we do with everybody at Sing for Hope. And again, thank you so much, Susie and the Paul Foundation, for this gift to be able to share the importance of creative arts therapy with the community. We need more creative arts therapists, so this is a great way to spread it. My name is Pamela Ayers. I've been the president of FAR for 12 years. We were originally founded in 1951 by parents who wanted someplace for their adult children to socialize. And through the years, those same parents are the parents that advocated for the Special Education Act in Michigan. And that was to allow kids with disabilities to be able to go to public schools. Well, so then FAR decided, we did what we needed to do and we're going to close up. And then they soon realized that kids weren't getting what they needed. And 8 months later, our board of directors came back together and said, we're going to now provide art for people with disabilities. And then in the 80s, we took it to the next level and decided to make sure that we hired credentialed therapists. So everybody that you hear from today is credentialed. They can go over their schooling because it ranges between music therapist and art therapist. And Jessica has a very unique education as a dance specialist. So again, we are so proud to be part of this opportunity to share, and we are always going to be open to your youth if they have any questions, or who knows, if they decide to become a creative arts therapist. We have a great internship program as well. And when's the last time you've been back in Detroit?
Just this past June.
Oh, wonderful. So we're in a really great environment here in Michigan, very open to creative arts therapy. We have 3 different locations. We service Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb counties. And last year we serviced over 1,600 individuals with disabilities. So that's something we're very proud of. And you're going to hear from 3 of our therapists today, but we have a therapy team of over 20 individuals. So that's a little bit about FAR. You can learn more on our website, which we'll share at the end of this presentation. And then I'll turn it over to Bree Bowen, who is our music therapist.
All right, thank you, Pamela. As Pam said, my name is Bree, and I am a music therapist at FAR. Let's see. I joined FAR in 2021. I graduated from Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, Michigan. At Western, I studied music therapy specifically, so I received my undergraduate in music with a specification in music therapy. I also have a minor in psychology, and that's a common combination that you'll see. Many music therapists have a minor in psychology, and it's very helpful to understand how humans work and how we relate to each other. So that's part of the education. Not only are you learning about music, but you're also learning about people. So the way that I found music therapy was actually very lucky compared to many of my peers. I learned about it in high school, and it was because of a presentation just like this, where a music therapist came to my school and told me about their experience after graduating from Western. So it was very inspiring, and it was perfect timing for me as I was navigating a career path and where I wanted to land and how I could combine my passion for making music and creating space with other people, collaborating and improvisation with music, and then combine that with my passion for people and finding something in the helping profession where I could combine those interests of psychology and music. And music therapy was the perfect combination of the two for me, and I feel so blessed to have found that career path. And I do feel that my work is extremely meaningful to me, and it has aligned exactly with my own passion and what I would hope to find in a career. So I hope that today you'll hear from me, Margaret, and Jessica all about how we have found authenticity in our work and how we're all very empowered and inspired to make a difference in the world in the way that we feel we can reach others. So for me, that's music. If you think about music therapy as just therapy, then you kind of probably have the idea of what therapy looks like, right? It's a therapist and a client, maybe it's a group of clients, but we are really working on that interpersonal relationship, building rapport with each other. And the cool thing with my work is that through the therapy, I get to connect with my clients using music as that tool for connection. So that could be playing instruments or listening to songs, maybe writing an original song to express how we feel. So there's so many different ways you can use music to reach clients in a therapeutic setting. I can go further into the educational process a bit later, but I would like to make introductions of all of our team before we do that. So that's enough about me and music therapy. I'll pass it along to Margaret, our art therapist at FAR.
Thanks, Bree, and thank you everybody for being here and giving us this chance to talk about things that we love and care about so very much. I started my career path quite a few years before Bree and Jessica did, so things were a little bit different at that point, and art therapy was just becoming something that you could study in the state of Michigan. I was the second class through the Wayne State University program in Detroit. My undergrad degree is in, I have a BFA from the Center for Creative Studies in Detroit, and that's in photography. And I worked as an assistant and a photographer for a few years and just found that something was missing. My connection with people was not getting made by being in the darkroom. And I loved talking with people and trying to make a difference in the world, like Bree said. And so I looked and just by chance went to a workshop by an art therapist who talked about visual journaling. And I thought, yep, this is it. So I went to graduate school and have worked at various jobs with different populations over 30 years. And that's one wonderful thing about art therapy, is that you can touch all ages of people. Hey, sorry.
We've still got you.
Oh, well, I have a black screen, so I'm just gonna wing it then.
Okay, wing it. Yeah, you sound great.
There we are.
You sound great.
Okay. So I've worked with young people, with people in assisted living, with high school students, with people who are struggle with mental illness and substance. Just so there's all a huge reach of what the arts can do. One thing that I said when I taught at Wayne in the earlier days of art therapy was that I couldn't guarantee that people would get a job. That's a little different now. There's many more opportunities for creative arts therapies now than there were 20 years ago. But I told them they might struggle finding a job, but once they had a job, I could promise them that they would love it. And that is something that you really can't, you can't place a value on. The idea of going to work every day and feeling like you make a difference and you connect with people and you connect with yourself. It's just a wonderful way to be with people through the arts, which I'm sure you know. Again, like Bree, we can talk a little bit more about what the education part is, but I am happy to have Jessica talk about how she got to where she is today.
Awesome. Thanks, Margaret. And thanks everybody for being here. I am Jessica Van Valkenburg. I'm the dance movement and yoga specialist here at FAR. And I also went to Western Michigan University where I received my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Dance. From there, I did have a professional dance career. I moved to Las Vegas. I danced in Vegas, California, Chicago. I also did several national tours and worked as a national spokesperson. And I pretty much danced up until the, I'm jokingly going to say old age of 30, because for dancers, that is usually when a lot of us start to have injuries or want to eat a hamburger, want to, go on to have a little bit more of maybe a normal life. And I'm joking saying that because the dance world has definitely improved. But 20 years ago, the standards for being a performing artist, which are still tough, but they were really tough then. So thankfully, I was able to transition into I actually went to cosmetology school. I got my license in cosmetology. And as I would be doing people's hair and makeup, they would just start talking to me and say, oh, I feel so comfortable with you, and telling me their whole life story. And I said, hey, there's something to this. I really enjoy this. And I really wanted to get back into dancing. I wanted to take some of the things that were a little bit more challenging for me, harder for me as a performer, and be able to make a difference in the way that I was educating dancers and people using dance and movement in ways that were less destructive towards the body and the self-esteem, and really uplifting. So I started working with women on body confidence and things like that. And then during the COVID pandemic, I also became pregnant and decided that I wanted to become a yoga teacher. So I got my 500 hours of yoga studying during my pregnancy and when my daughter was a newborn, and really decided that I wanted to continue with therapeutic movement and how that would look. And I found FAR in, I guess it was 2020. And I just fell in love with this population, with working with these folks who are just so authentically themselves, being able to use movement as a form of communication, confidence building, empowerment, in addition to all the benefits that we know dance has, which is strengthening stability, flexibility, coordination, good cognitive ability, raising the vibration. All of those things were just so natural, hand in hand. So I went back to my love affair of dance and brought in all of the therapeutic skills. I also regularly use some of my cosmetology skills when it comes to doing a little bit of facial massage or working with the nervous system. I do face painting for some of our camps. So I really found a way to just incorporate all of my own creative outlets and all of the things that I love learning. I'm a lifelong learner, so I love bringing in different modalities. And as my colleagues have said, we work with clients from there's no age limit at FAR. So we work with clients that are maybe 3 to 4 years old, all the way up to people in their 70s. They could be using a wheelchair. They could be, at different levels of ability. And it's just amazing to come up with creative ways to incorporate movement and dance. And I truly, truly love it. I truly love this work. I look forward to coming to work every single day. And it's helped me to heal some of the places in me that were like a little bit, hurt from the dance world. And it's tough. I'm sure those of you who are artists know that you really have to have a thick skin to be a performer. And so being able to find just constructive, beautiful ways to celebrate joy and movement has been the most rewarding part of being a therapist now. So, yes.
This is incredible, and it's so great to meet all of you. And not to mention, I think that this conversation is all the more powerful with each of you in your individual specialties, and I'm really excited to dive into that. I do want to also introduce you my coworker, Victoria Patterson, who I mentioned is Victoria. I'm going to let you introduce yourself as well, but I will just say that Victoria is an incredible violinist and has been a really special part of Sing for Hope these last few years, shaping and guiding our public health and well-being department. So Victoria, if you want to introduce yourself and share a little bit of the work that you've done for us.
Thank you, Patrick. And I'm inspired by all of you. It's actually really refreshing because I'm like in my music. I'm a violinist, and just hearing about the dance and visual art that's just sparking my imagination. And I love hearing your stories. So thank you for sharing. So my name is Victoria Patterson. I'm a violinist, and just a brief history on my life story. I started the violin when I was 4 years old, and I fast forward, ended up playing on Broadway for over 20 years in the Broadway orchestras, from Phantom of the Opera to Wicked to My Fair Lady to Moulin Rouge to West Side Story, The Addams Family. I just had a really nice run of violin playing in the orchestras in New York City, Sunset Boulevard. Of course, I actually can play all types of music, but that's how it kind of went. It just went that way. And so I'm classically trained. And I think partly was, even though I was classically trained, I always loved all types of music, And so Broadway was a fun way to mix up genres. And then now, fast forward, like pandemic, what happened for me was, even before the pandemic, I always loved to play in hospitals, and I loved to play for senior centers, cancer kids. I worked for a company called Music That Heals in New York City, which serves different hospitals in the 5 boroughs. But it was kind of an extra. It was like, oh, okay, you'll make $150, and it wasn't the way I paid our bills. It was just like something I really loved to do. And then I kind of loved it more and more. And I started doing not just 1 a month, but like 3 a month, and then 4 a month. And then I was just like, oh, wow, this is just so much fun, because I loved Broadway. I still love Broadway, but you are in a pit, and you're not necessarily connecting in the way that you all are explaining when you're connecting with little kids, or elders, or people of all ages in a room that's intimate. Usually I'm never performing for more than my big crowd. I played for a senior center yesterday. That was like 30 people. That's like a big crowd for me. So it's very intimate, as you know. And so I really just felt like, wow, this is something I really love to do. And because I can play like jack of all trades, I can play like a fiddles tune pretty okay. I can play a Broadway song. I can play Gershwin. I can play some J.S. Bach. I am not a music therapist with like capital MT. I have never gone back to school for music therapy. Maybe, I'm still young. Maybe I'll do that. But this was a way for me to be able to play songs for people, because I have a really good memory, and I can just kind of like play, like, okay, play a Led Zeppelin song, and I like kind of wing it. And so I feel like that when you're playing, as you all know, when you're playing for elderly people or little kids, a song that they recognize, that sparks their memory, that sparks their interest. And I don't know, I just have a good memory, so I can do that. So then in the pandemic, I got connected with Sing for Hope, because they created this incredible opportunity at the Jacob Javits Center, which is where I met Patrick Connolly here. He was helping me with sound. We were doing Zoom concerts. We were doing in-person concerts. Basically, Sing for Hope did a lunchtime concert 7 days a week for almost 6 months at the Jacob Javits Center, where everybody was getting vaccinated. At the height of it, it was 10,000 people a day. We had this little stage. We had 3 to 5 musicians performing, and I curated and ran the lunchtime series. And I played violin maybe once or twice a week, and then all these people in New York were able to play for those 6 months. And then I was like, wait a minute, I really love doing this. And I've just basically made that decision. Like, I'm not going to go back to Broadway post-pandemic. I'm going to just try to make a living in healing arts. And because of Sing for Hope, I was able to do that. And so it's been incredible change for me, because I was like working 8 shows a week, getting in at midnight. And now I'm going to bed like at 9 p.m. It's so exciting. So it's a different lifestyle. It's a different audience I'm serving, but I am hooked. I am hooked, and I love it. And I think that there are so many fantastic violinists, but not everybody can do what people in this room can do, where you're connecting. It's not just that you can play the violin, it's so much more than that. And I think I can do that. So that's my life in a nutshell.
Thanks for sharing, Victoria. And I think so part of what's cool about this is, like Bree mentioned, Bree, I love that you shared that you sort of discovered music therapy through a conversation like this. And part of what's cool about these conversations is just hearing the stories of how you got to where you are, because I hope that it is inspiring to everyone listening. Now I might be handing it to Pamela here. I know that we wanted to hear a little bit more about that path and how what does the training look like to become an arts therapist, and like what does it take? What does that pathway look like? Is it best to throw it to you, Pamela?
Well, I'll probably refer actually to the therapist, because every therapy, every discipline has a different path. Art therapy and music therapy is very different. So why don't we have Bree just talk a little bit about the path with music therapy, and then have them, because it's personal to them. They went through it. So that might be
Sure.
a better way of doing it if you're good with that.
Absolutely, Bree. That sounds great. If you'd like to share a little bit.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. So I'll start with the traditional track. If you want to become a music therapist, you can go to an undergraduate program that is approved by the AMTA Association, so the American Music Therapy Association. You can check out their website to find colleges that have approved programs for music therapy. So if you're in Michigan, Western Michigan and Eastern Michigan are 2 schools that have programs for music therapy. There are also equivalency master's programs all over the place. So Victoria, like you were saying, it isn't too late to go back to school. And there are some colleges that will do a basically fully remote equivalency master's program, and then you just go in for field work for a few weeks. So if you have an undergraduate in music, you can do that equivalency master's program to find your way through music therapy through the education process. For the 4-year degree, for 2 years, you're going to be focused on learning all of your music aptitudes. So it's really similar to the requirements for music education majors and music performance majors. So I shared a lot of the same classes with those students. And then your final 2 years of undergraduate study really focus in on the therapy side of music therapy. So it was a 4-year degree program for me. Afterward, we are required to do an internship program. So you have a total number of hours you have to meet the requirement of through this fieldwork opportunity. So you're done with your 4 years of college, then you do your internship program. So you can do that in so many different settings, whatever interests you. So some people would do an internship in hospice, or I did mine in a hospital setting where I primarily worked with NICU and pediatric units in the hospital to work with kiddos. We also worked in the adult medical unit, so I was able to get experience of people with all ages and all levels of ability, all levels of, different reasons that they were in the hospital. So there are many different populations that you can specialize in for your internship experience. And then afterward, once you've completed all of the fieldwork portion of the education process, then you sit for your board examination. And so we all have board certification. I put in my title here, MT-BC, so that means I'm a board certified music therapist. In order to work in the field, you have to be board certified. So we sit for this really scary exam that everybody passes eventually. But that allows you to practice for 5 years, and then you maintain your credential by doing continuing education for the next 5 years. And then after that, it's just like Jessica said, you're a lifelong learner. We keep doing those continuing education credits so that we can stay sharp with current research on how music benefits people and continue to look at the research behind why music therapy works. So I think it is really important to have that certification and continuing education as you go through your career. So that would be the general track from finding an undergraduate program that's accredited by the AMTA Association, doing your 4-year degree or your master's equivalency, then doing internship and sitting for your board exam. And then voila, you can be a music therapist. So then if Margaret wants to talk about the track for art therapy, I'll pass it over to her.
Okay, thank you. I remembered something important that I wanted to say that I didn't in my little intro section, which is part of why I knew I wanted to be an art therapist or find some way to work with people in art, is I knew what art making did for me. I knew how it supported me and changed me and helped me learn and understand things in new ways. And I wanted to be able to give that opportunity to other people. So let's see, how to be an art therapist. You can start with an undergraduate degree. There are some schools that have an undergraduate art therapy degree. Most schools that have an art therapy class or two, they kind of introduce the idea and talk about different populations, but you are not able to become a registered art therapist simply with a bachelor's degree. So the bachelor's is the undergraduate classes are going to let you see, is this a good fit for me? Do I like it? Does this make sense to me? Should I look for a graduate program? And many of the undergraduate students are psychology majors also. Some are art educators, some are sociology majors, philosophy majors. It's pretty open at the undergraduate level, except you need to be able to be someone who makes art. It's not just the word part, it's the whole piece. So you have to be familiar with different kinds of art making, 3D, 2D paint, so that not that you have to be a great artist and all of those, but if somebody says, I really want to make a sculpture of a giraffe that stands up, you have to be able to support that person and give them the technique and the guidelines to help them make their giraffe that stands up so that they can feel good. So then you look for a master's program. Wayne State is still the only program in Michigan. But again, like Bree said, there's a national organization, the American Art Therapy Association. They have a really comprehensive website that's going to tell you about programs and how to become a registered art therapist. So there's a practicum and internship part of the graduate degree that's going to let you see what it's like to work in different settings, varied settings. And then once you graduate and have a job, you accumulate 1,000 hours of direct client contact in art therapy. And those 1,000 hours are supervised by a registered art therapist, board certified. And then you apply for registration and you can use those ATR letters. And then again, as Bree said, there's an exam, a scary exam that you sit for. And then you can add the BC. And there's also art therapy registered supervisor credential that's going to allow you to do that supervision with new professionals, which I really enjoy doing. I've done that for many years, and it's really exciting to work with people who are just discovering what it is that they're going to do. Oh, that means it's Jess's turn.
So my path is a little bit different. It's a little bit kind of pulled from just things that I've enjoyed and bringing them together into where I've ended up. To be a professional dancer, you actually don't necessarily even need an undergraduate degree. However, I did achieve my Bachelor of Fine Arts, which, you know, for any higher ed or teaching, of course, you'd probably want to start with an undergraduate degree. From there, on this path of being a therapeutic instructor, I went on and I got my 500 hours in yoga because I found the power of breath work and moving meditation, as well as helping people to balance stress and work with the nervous system, was just so valuable. So you can get a 200 level, which is a beginner yoga certification. And if you register with Yoga Alliance, then you technically could teach at any studio. I went on then to get an additional 300 hours to put me as a RYT 500, which is just further diving into the yoga philosophy, really understanding more than just the asana, more than just the poses, but all of the full philosophy and all of the 8 limbs of yoga. From there, I love learning, so I have so many certifications. I'm trying to remember them all. But I am also a Reiki level 3 master. So I went through 3 different levels of the Usui Reiki training because I do energy work with movement and with yoga and meditation as well. And then, as Pamela said, we're all credentialed. So I had already started the process of wanting to become a credentialed therapist. And so I'm just finishing my 500 hours to become a registered somatic movement therapist. So that really takes all of kind of everything that I was already doing, yoga, movement, dance, breath work, and kind of brings them all together into really working with the nervous system. So somatics deals with helping people to self-regulate, to feel more at ease, safety, comfortable in their bodies, and doing that through somatic tools. So I am just finishing up that schooling because it's taken about 5 years. And then in addition to that, I have like 25 years of dance experience. I started teaching dance class at a dance studio when I was in college and never really stopped. I've choreographed musicals, I've choreographed for community theater, I've worked in schools. So really working as a choreographer, working as a professional dancer, working as an instructor, and now becoming a therapist has all kind of put it together. But in dance, you can kind of go off on any of those paths. However, I found that this is the most rewarding for me because, as I said, it's really taking something that has brought me so much joy in my life, but also has been a struggle at times, and really just finding an embodied confidence in myself and with my clients, and being able to just feel the love of movement. So there's no agenda. There's no, I mean, of course we have goals and objectives that we're working on with our clients, but it's not for performance, right? It doesn't have to be for a performance. So it's just really finding, being present in the moment and finding the true joy of being able to move the body and connect with each other. And that's just so, there's nothing better than that. So yeah, there's a lot of different paths for dance.
Thank you guys for sharing all that. You know, it's funny, you're making me reflect on just like life and career, because it is like when you share all this training that you've done and all this experience that you've had, it can sound overwhelming if you're starting from scratch. But it's amazing how this comes with time, right? And how before long you look back and you think, wow, I really do. I have all this experience and I've done all this. You know, I've been in all these different areas. And the other thing that I find that we're highlighting here, maybe unintentionally, is a concept of emerging fields and changing. You know, I suspect, I don't know, but Pamela, when you were sharing about FAR and its introduction, did you say 1951? Was that
Yes.
was arts therapy even a phrase then?
Music therapy probably was the first, and ladies, correct me if I'm wrong, the first discipline that was really looked on as a creative arts therapy. But it took a while. I mean, we didn't start really hiring professional creative arts therapists until the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It may have been around then, or even like when it could actually be studied as a degree, the way that Bree did an undergrad in music therapy. I'm not sure when that would have been first available, but I imagine that's a fairly new concept, right? The other thing. Oh, go ahead, Bree.
Thank you. I'd have to look back at the history again to remember the exact dates, but actually the initial National Society of Musical Therapists, which is our name has obviously changed and evolved over the hundreds of years, but that was actually first founded in 1903. So this concept and the fields have been around for a long time. They've evolved and changed and become sharper with science and research as we've been able to develop our own understanding of research within our own individual fields. But yeah, then in 1941, there was the National Foundation of Music Therapy. So I think in 1971, that was like the first year of another national association. Then they combined with the American Music Therapy Association later. So yes, music therapy has been around for a really long time, and I wish more people knew about it. But I think that goes similarly with art therapy, that it's been around for a long time.
But it seems like it continues to grow and it
Yes.
continues to evolve. And so I love like Margaret, when you were sharing about studying photography as an undergrad. So it's just a testament to, I think a lot of us are learning about this field maybe later, and not, and kind of discovering it and realizing that there's still it's still something that we want to pursue. So thank you, even if it was unintentional. Thank you for sort of highlighting that and highlighting that sometimes it is a circuitous path. But to our point about experience, I got to thinking, Victoria, you talk about how you played Broadway for so long, and now you've kind of reached a point where, well, you actually really enjoy connecting with everybody, and that has become an important part of the work that you do. But when you're talking about your memory and how you're able to kind of, because having seen Victoria play, it is like you are able to you're a jukebox. And I wonder if, would you be able to work in this field in the same way that you do without that Broadway experience, without having played as a working musician for so long?
The jukebox thing is because of, I want to credit it to, well, I'm going to say Suzuki method, because when I started, when I was 4, the Suzuki method is this thing where you learn music by ear. And that was actually, for many years, for 20 plus years, that held me back in classical, because my youth orchestra conductor was like, you can't read. You're like memorizing the second violin Dvorak symphony. Like, I'm not really reading music. So that for years I had to like turn away my ear in a way to get my reading chops. Broadway, I don't think that, well, I think Broadway was great for me getting a variety and learning so many songs, and being in New York City playing so many different jobs. You do know this, Patrick, is you've got to know like one Billy Joel and one, Pavarotti, and I feel like I did learn a lot of new songs when I started working in New York City, because people kind of expect you to be able to play a lot of pieces, unless you're just like in the New York Philharmonic, which was not what I was doing. So I did like get a lot more, like my catalog of music is ever growing. But it is, I think that I would like to say Suzuki method did help me with my ear, because I was very instinctual musician. And it's funny, I just played yesterday at a senior center with a folk fiddler guitarist, which I don't normally do, but she's an old friend of the family. And so we were rehearsing, and like, she couldn't read music, and so there was no music, but that was a perfect example where I could just kind of play the songs that she wanted, even though I didn't know all of them, because I have a good ear. So
Sure.
yeah, I guess I'm a weird animal, but there are others that can do this, like you.
I do some, yeah, I do some of that. So I play for a lot of piano bars in New York City. So it's an all request show, and I do relate to what you're saying quite a lot, Victoria. So for all of our therapists here, I'd love to hear, like, tell us what an arts therapy session really looks like. what is, and I we might just go down the line again, because you are working in, obviously very related, but you sort of unique specialties. So like Bree, if you want to share just what a music therapy session looks like and what's happening during that time.
Sure. I will say there are prerequisites musically that you need to become a music therapist. So I kind of skipped over that part. Like Margaret was saying, it's important to make sure that you yourself as a musician feel like you can connect with others through that modality, through music, that you're going to be able to have the music skills and going in the background, and then you're present with the human that you're sitting in front of. So yes, the music aptitudes are important to be established, and you gain those skills growing up as a musician, and then going into college, into a music therapy program, you will audition for a music studio. So you'll specify into one instrument or voice studio and actually study with a professor for 2 years. So I forgot to mention that part of the beginning of the music therapy education process. So I grew up a percussionist through my life, and then I studied piano with my studio professor in college. So definitely having those chops developed before you go into the field is necessary and helpful to be even ready for the session to happen. So we don't expect our clients to be musically inclined or skilled, but the therapist has to have those prerequisite expectations met, that, like Victoria was saying, you can be a jukebox and just play the songs that the client wants to hear, because the most important thing is that you are creating space for a person-centered session, so that whatever the client, their genre or their interests in, maybe it's a really obscure artist you've never heard of before, but that you're willing to go listen to that music and figure it out. And if you can play it live with them the next session, think about how much more of an impact you're going to have on that person, that you learned their favorite song. So those skills are absolutely very important to bring to the table, because we do prefer making live music together to just create and deepen that space and connection with someone else. Yes, we do passive music listening in sessions depending on the client. So that might be listening to a recorded song and talking about it. How does that make your body feel? What memories does that bring back for you? Maybe it's like an older adult's wedding song that you're listening to, and they really want to hear the original with the original artist's power and orchestration behind them. Because I'm only one person, I can play a song on a guitar, but sometimes using recorded music is just as useful. So I think it's hard to answer the question, what does a music therapy session look like? Because there are so many variables, and that's awesome, because I get to use my therapy brain all day long thinking about, how can I best support this client based on the information I have from them? So how old are they? What are their interests? What are their abilities? Do they have a diagnosis I can pull from my understanding of maybe where they're coming from with anxiety or depression or a cognitive impairment or something like that? So first, before you even meet with the client, you want to gather as much information about them as possible, so that you can make kind of a therapeutic plan going into it and pull from your toolbox of songs. Like, okay, I'm going to go see a 3-year-old. I'm going to play nursery rhymes for them, probably not Led Zeppelin. Or maybe their family listens to Led Zeppelin at home, and then you want to play that too. So the more information you have about the client or group, the better going into it. Most music therapists use a similar structure. So they usually will play a hello song in the beginning to individually greet everybody in the room, or to just greet the one person they're working with. And we use that same song for every session that we see that client, so that it's a priming reminder, like, oh yeah, now we're starting the session. So that's a trick that music therapists use, to always use the same hello song. And the same thing at the end of the session, we cap it with the same goodbye song. We need to make sure we know the end of the session is coming. So I usually will use the same goodbye song for each of my sessions. It's whatever. That song can be literally anything. You can make it up with your client. It doesn't have to be like, there's no rule around what it should look like, but as long as it's special for that person and it signifies for them that this is the end of the session, that's how we will formulate kind of beginning and end. Anything in the middle that happens, depends on the treatment plan that the therapist creates for their client. So whether that's based on requests from the client, or maybe information from a parent or guardian or school teacher or someone who you're partnering with to help determine what kinds of activities you're going to be doing during the session. So it depends on what personal goals they have. Do they want to improve their cognition and work on following directions or sustaining long spans of attention? Do they need to work on positive peer interaction with their friends at school? We can work on physical goals too, so motor and fine motor skills. A lot of instrument playing can help someone improve their flexibility in their hands or the fine motor skills that they have. So first of all, we're looking at what are your abilities and what are your needs? What does the client need from the session? Maybe it's just they need 30 minutes to relax and literally shut their brain off so that they can ground their nervous system and calm down from an anxious day. So that might mean I'm playing continuous music on the guitar using really soft finger picking, and maybe I'm modulating between chord progressions that are really smooth from one key signature to the next so that the client isn't feeling that abrupt change. So as a therapist first, I'm trying to create this space of quiet, calm, smooth transition. So it's really fun to be in this field because I'm using both my music brain and my therapy brain to create a space and a session for my clients based on what they need. And sometimes it happens in the moment and you don't even know what you're going to do, but then it happens and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. Like, I am so amazed every day at work after I'm done with a session when something happens that I could never have planned for. And it just happens because I'm available to connect in an authentic way with my client, and they enter that space and feel that same invitation to just be themselves. And so we might make a really silly, wacky song about what they ate for breakfast, but sometimes that's the most meaningful piece of connection they've had all day. So there are lots of different interventions that a music therapist can use, whether that's planned out. Maybe there's research behind a specific activity that this music therapist researched, and they know that if you follow these steps, 1, 2, 3, then you'll have the same outcome. So there are like formulaic interventions that we have, and then there's improvisation and just creating something. So I don't mean to be vague with how I describe this, but the cool thing about it is it's always customizable, and there's so much personality and independent variables that determine what a session looks like. So that's my best answer at what a session looks like.
If I may jump in, thank you so much, Bree. My name is Pamela. I've worked with Sing for Hope for 8 years, and it's fun to have another Pamela, but it's so meaningful and inspiring to be in this conversation. I just want to say that even though Sing for Hope's artists are not credentialed, that sounds so familiar as to how programs are constructed. And I know that Victoria would say the same thing, because it's all about curating for the clients. And it comes from a very unique, personalized understanding of where am I? Who are you? What are we trying to accomplish today? And without any of those things as a baseline understanding, you're not going to get anywhere, even if you are the most classically trained artist or musician, because it's about creating a safe space. And Sing for Hope works with so many different people in different situations, in hospitals, in NICUs, pediatric units, like you said, cancer centers, but it's all about creating that individualized moment, and it's never going to be the same. And so I think it's really important for our kids who are watching this to know that it comes first from yourself, right? It comes from creating that space in yourself for listening, and then using the skills that you have to be able to give back to the people around you. So thank you for letting me, but I was just so inspired to share, because even though we're all coming from different places, it's a unified experience of we're connecting with people in the ways that we know. And so I just think that that's really special.
Thanks, Pam. I also think, Bree, thank you for highlighting sort of actually some of the differences too between what Victoria and myself do. And what you guys do, because the other thing I see is that, like Victoria, I think we can both agree that we see connection happening all the time, with even as much as like, oh my God, sometimes you play a song and suddenly you have an audience member crying, right? That's something that I think that we have both seen actually fairly often. And so our ultimate goal is always to uplift. But Bree, you have tools to actually understand more what is happening there, and actually to bring out even further, and sort of engage them further in conversation, and to unpack what they might be feeling. So I love that. All right, Margaret, can you share a little bit about what a visual arts therapy session looks like?
Yep. Again, as Bree said, it's individual to each person. There's a difference between a one-on-one session versus a group session, where the goals might be more about socialization or increased interaction or helping each other or expressing a particular idea. I was thinking about my work at Vista Maria, which is a residential treatment program for teen girls from 11 to 18 or 19. And I see individual girls there, and every single one of those sessions is different, depending on the girl. I try to give them the opportunity to lead and have self-advocacy and self-determination, because they don't have it living in a group setting as they do. And I think they would be surprised if they saw each other's sessions, because they're not always similar at all. And sometimes I might have something planned and ready, and we're going to do something about feelings, or we're going to try a collage, and they're going to walk in and say, I want to make something about my brother who died. And that's what we'll do. So it's a very collaborative, that's a good word. And it's between myself and the client, and then myself and the materials too, and the materials and the client. And what I like about the visual arts is the possibility of people feeling good about themselves and building their self-confidence and their mastery. It isn't about the product. And I'll also say products are great when they can take that product and show it to someone, or give it to someone, or let someone understand something about them because of what they painted or drew. So that's something that I like very much. And in school settings, you have a group of maybe 8 or 10 people. So you're kind of having those overall goals of, as Bree said, sustained focus or socialization. And I love that everybody brings their own vision to whatever it is that I brought. And everybody's is different, and everybody's is great. And it's really an opportunity for people to live out that resiliency word. That's such, we all want to be resilient. Well, you can learn how to be resilient by trying again and not giving up and working it out until it satisfies you. And if it doesn't, you get to choose something else. So I love that it's a living embodiment of those social, emotional, and resilience. They're good words, and they can be lived out with what we do. You ready, Jess?
Yeah, let's hear from Jessica.
Yeah, and I wanted to share something too that I was thinking as we were talking. I am an artist first, as I think probably almost everyone on this call is. And so when I allow myself to connect to the place of, like Margaret said, what changes in me when I'm creating art, I give permission for my client to do the same thing and to really create something beautiful for themselves within themselves. And it heals me at the same time. So I think, being an artist, we have all these cool skills, like being able to improvise and being able to just pull something out of, wherever to fit the need, and also being able to assert ourselves and stand up and be confident, take up space. And so, in the dance world, when I'm working with a client, I'm always encouraging and empowering that, like, take up your space, claim your room, find your body, because so many of us are disconnected, our brains from our bodies. And so just getting them to notice, to be aware of their body is like number one. Like, do you notice how your body feels right now? where are you feeling that? Is that in your heart? Is that in your stomach? Do you have to go to the bathroom? Oh my gosh. Sometimes they come in, they're like, you know what? I just realized that I have to pee, because it's the first time that they've actually taken a moment to tune in to something other than what's up here. So, so we do a lot of noticing, sensing, really just trying to connect with the body and become embodied, grounded. And we warm up. I follow a method called Shake Your Soul, which was created by my teacher. It follows the fluids in the body. So synovial fluid is the fluid that lubricates the joints. Intercellular is in between the cells. Venous is blood that goes through the veins. So all of these fluids have different movements that open them up. So once we've done a full warm up by lubricating this fluid and moving the fluid through the body, they're primed, they're ready, they're feeling really good. And then we may move into like some skill building. This is my beautiful dance room. So I have a lot of adaptive props that I use. I have those balls. I do cardio drumming a lot. Incorporating rhythm is so important for everybody, especially if they're feeling dysregulated. We come back to the beat, right, of our heart, of our breath. We're always moving as human beings. So I use that. I use these like type of yoga blocks to support them on the ground so that they're never hanging out in any position. They're always feeling restorative. They're always feeling supported physically. We do tap dancing because there's instant gratification when we hear the sound. I have a ballet bar that I can have clients hold on to if they're worried about balance. I do seated chair yoga. I do wheelchair yoga. It really just depends on what the client needs. Like we said, everything is tailored to the individual client and, their age, the music that they like, the things that they like to do. And then I finish almost every single session with some kind of shavasana, stretch, and rest. And rest is so important for many, many reasons, but because that's the opportunity for the nervous system to relax. And a lot of our clients, God bless their parents, because I know that it's hard for a lot of our parents, but they're taking them to school or their program, and then they have an ABA therapist, and then they have a speech therapist, and then, so they are constantly like running and working on themselves, which is like wonderful, but also they need a place to safely be able to just really, like Bray was saying, sometimes relax and have that stress reduction. So I promote rest in every single session, even my school sessions. I promote one song, 3 minutes of everybody laying down and just resting. And if you haven't read the book, Rest is Resilience, it's an amazing, amazing book about social justice and how our society doesn't ever want us to slow down, right? Because capitalism and being productive. And so that actually taking a rest, taking a breath, noticing what we're feeling is an act of resistance. And so it's such a good book if you haven't read it. But I kind of put that into all of my sessions, creating a safe opportunity for people to take a breath and rest.
I love that so much. Jessica, I've been saying, I think I need to like pull my wife in here to like back me up. I've been saying forever that I wish I had learned in school productive rest, like some form of mindfulness or something. So I really love that. I love that you're sharing that with clients. Well, listen, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I was hoping to wrap up with like if and Victoria, I'd love to include you in this. If we could all maybe share, I'll give you an option, either a really impactful moment that you had at some point, that like something that really stood out as like, this is why I'm doing what I do, or if it's easier to think of, just something that you'd like to leave with our listeners, something that they should take away from this. So can we just go in the order we've been going? So we'll start with Bree. Is that or maybe whoever has something first. I don't want to put anybody on the spot too much. If somebody thinks of something.
I'd like to just share that, we have such a large but really impactful therapy team. And one thing that I think is really special is when they're able to co-treat. They don't necessarily work together in a therapy session, but Jessica sees a client who is in love with Bruno Mars. Everything's about Bruno Mars. So then he also works with one of our music therapists, Patrick, and he does percussion with him, and he also does piano with another therapist. And far is a big part of his life. This this is his education in a sense. This is where he feels safe. His mother feels safe for him. And so he does about 7 different sessions a week in different disciplines and everything. But it's really special that Jessica and Patrick can work with Juan and make sure that he has the love of Bruno Mars in his life by dancing to it and playing with it. And it's really, really special. So the fact that we have such a good creative team that can work together, it makes a huge impact on individuals with disabilities in their lives.
You answered a question that I had written down but didn't think we had time for. So I was going to ask if the therapists ever work together across media. That's great.
Yeah.
I can go next. I think we all have really impactful and special moments with our clients every day. But something that I've just been thinking about this whole time we've been talking is not necessarily a client story, but just an inspiring thought for empowering young people to pursue something that they feel purpose in. I recently heard a statistic that in the US, only 30% of people feel like they have a purpose at their job. And that's a really sad statistic. I think, like Jessica was saying, our capitalist society just really encourages us to push and create a product and make money. And that can be great, but also it leaves people sometimes feeling like they don't have a purpose in their job. And there is a possibility for you to find work that's meaningful, that you feel connected to, that you see a difference happening every day because of the work that you did, because you showed up to work, you impacted someone's life directly. And all of our fields are examples of that and testaments to that every day. So I just encourage everybody to really reflect and find your purpose. It might not be the most beautiful track that, from A to Z looks like someone else's, but that's the beauty of finding a meaningful work in your career is just exploring what resonates with you and what is authentic to your heart that you want to share with the world, because we all have such beautiful gifts we can share with each other and with the world. And I think it's important to find that in your work. So I think that's just the last thing I want to leave with our listeners today.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good reminder, Bree, for sure. I think another thing that is wonderful for us and for the people that we work with is that feeling of joy that we bring to a situation, that feeling of engagement and being alive, because that's what the arts do for people. They make them feel alive. And I just love when staff in any of my settings is able to see a person in a new way. Oh, so-and-so made that. And they're like, what? And it's just such a wonderful thing to be able to provide that space where that happens. And one of my favorite things any day that I go to work is to hear in the classroom or the group or the word, ta-da. Someone will make something or do a certain part or a certain step, and they say ta-da. So I wish you many, many, many ta-da moments for yourself and for other people, for sure.
It also is very special. Performance is not part of our therapy plan for most of the individuals that we see, but for those that it is, it's super empowering to be able to perform. And I'm kind of going back to music and dance therapy for that, but to watch the parents and grandparents say, like, look, my child performed, look at them, is really meaningful, because a lot of times in a typical school setting, they probably aren't going to be in choir or the school play. Not that some of our clients aren't, but the majority aren't. So for those that do have that opportunity to perform and share their gift and have, I just have to tell you a story. So this Sunday we had a fashion show with all individuals with disabilities, and one of our past clients performed a song that she wrote called Complicated Me, about growing up and being bullied and having autism. And one of our clients, who was in the back of the line, who was going to be doing the fashion show, could not stand it. He had to be on up there with her, and she was so sweet. And she just took his hand. And after the performance, I said, "Oh, Laura, you were such a professional. That was amazing." She goes, "Oh, I just decided to incorporate him in my performance." And she just said it with like this grace. And if it wasn't for music therapy, she wouldn't be where she is today. And she's now traveling. She's won all kinds of awards for being an autistic performer. I mean, she's just an amazing young lady. But music therapy gave her that ground. That's what she stands on, and it's really beautiful to see.
That's great. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll just share a quick story about dance. Dance is so intimate, and I love that it's something that society, it used to be a much bigger part of our society, right? Everybody danced socially. Even when I was younger and going out, and like you'd go to the bar and you dance the whole night, and that like really isn't happening as much anymore in certain places. So like I love having opportunities for social dance and connection, because it's a part of who we are. People have danced since the beginning of time. Babies dance before they can walk. So I just think that it's really inherent, and it's in all of us. And so I had a autism class that I was seeing, an ASD class, and it was just happened to be all young men in this group, and they were very like tall, big young men. And I was noticing that they really wanted control. And so I decided to do an intervention which would provide them with some safe control. So there was paras in the room, there was teachers in the room. And so I said, I'm going to be a puppet, and I'm going to stand like this, and I want you to come and move me and touch me. And I told them where, of course, and gave them guidelines, and put on some like really beautiful moving music. And one at a time, they took turns, coming up and like moving me like a puppet. And I could see the look of fear on all of the paras' faces and all of the teachers' faces, because they just didn't know what was going to happen. And I could tell that they were like nervous, just wanting to make sure I was going to be safe. And you could hear a pin drop, and they were so gentle, and they were so focused, and it was so beautiful. They all looked me in the eye, which also one of the traits of autism is to look away or to feel shy. And so the fact that they could be in this really intimate moment in front of their peers, and boys who are not always encouraged to show their emotions or to show, that I was crying. I was crying by the end of it, because it was just so beautiful. So as they like gently moved me one at a time, then they would sit down, and then the next person would come. And it just turned into this really beautiful dance. And it was a little bubble that was created in that moment. And from that point on, some people might have had emotional outbursts, but the level of respect that we had for each other was here, and there was never a question of safety from either end. So it was a true bond that was created just by moving with music. And so I just think that some things are unspoken. It's good to be able to talk things out, and we do, but so much part of my work is unspoken, and it's just those moments of true connection, something much deeper than just our words or just our teaching. So a bigger picture that we're all here to fulfill.
That's incredible. Thanks for sharing that. That's a really cool story.
I guess I'll speak, and then wow, I could hang out with you all afternoon.
Right?
I'm quite inspired, and it really is a wonderful discussion. So I thank you for having me part of the mix. I could say so many stories, but the Javits Center was probably something that I'll be like telling till I'm 85 years old, because I don't know when. I hope we never have a global pandemic again, where we're all in that bizarre situation where there's 10,000 people getting vaccinations, and there was the National Guard, and there were doctors, and there were nurses, and there was just all the New York City mayors, and there was a lot of, it was not a chill environment, to say the least. And I just couldn't be more proud that we were able, in a time when there was no Broadway, there was no Lincoln Center, no Carnegie Hall, there was no music in this country, in the world really, that Sing for Hope was able to find a safe way to present music, even 2 hours a day. And the emotional connections we made with people, because remember, we all had to everyone had to sit, many feet apart and wait 20 minutes after the vaccination. So they were like we had a built-in audience, right, listening to this music. And it was just, I mean, a day after day, people were in tears, but like happy tears, like this is, we need to get those emotions out. And people had not experienced live music for like 8 months. And it's different than listening, like you were saying, as a dancer, the vibrations, when you're listening to music in a real space as opposed to listening to Spotify or whatever, it's just like not comparable. It's not the same. So people were extremely having so much gratitude and felt it so healing to have music. And I continue to play in like giant train stations, and we just played in Prospect Park on Saturday, and we're playing for like just really these giant spaces, like between the Javits Center to parks to train stations. And I find that so interesting because, you've got all walks of life. You've got people, music, if you play the right song, if you hit the right mark, it's not about politics. It's not about like how wealthy or poor you are. It's like people are moved and people want to come together. And so we're like that healing band-aid to make people, or that warm blanket to make them feel good for those 3 minutes, And so whether I'm playing just for one person with Alzheimer's, for an afternoon, for me, I only play when I do room to room, I only do like 5 minutes. So I'm really just a spark in their day. I'm just this one moment where I play a couple songs, but I hope that moment was the highlight of their day, And so I feel so blessed to just put a smile on somebody's face, or like you said, like take down their heartbeat, because we're so like crazed as human beings, especially New Yorkers. So what a joy to just take it down for a second, just a beautiful song or something. And so if you're young, if you're listening to this today, I just want to say, when I was in youth orchestra in high school, I had no idea what it would mean to be a violinist. I didn't know anything about music therapy. I didn't know anything about Broadway. So just, if you're loving what you're doing, if you're doing that in high school, like it's such a great time to be a visual artist, a dancer, a musician, in my opinion, because I think there's like, now we're opening the world maybe more to all types of, you don't have to be a primo ballerina in the New York City Ballet. You can like do like all types of art, music, and dance, and not be so maybe stressed out like, oh my God, well, I better just quit. I better quit art because I'm not the next Picasso. No, absolutely not. So I hope that that like we're all making a living and we're all doing great. And so like you can find your way that doesn't have to just be that one track. It's really great.
Well said. Well, listen, I thank you guys for being so generous with your time. I really appreciate it. Me and on behalf of Sing for Hope, I appreciate it very much. It was lovely to meet all of you. I do want to thank the Paul Foundation again for allowing us to have this conversation. I want to thank Farr Therapeutic Arts for first of all the incredible work you're doing, and again for sharing your time and your stories with us today. And I hope that this is the start of a long and storied connection between Sing for Hope and Farr.
Okay, here we are. So our website is www.farr-therapy.org. This is what our front page looks like. So check us out there to learn more about Farr. You can also contact us directly at our front office here with that number 248-646-3347. And any inquiries can be made to our general email inbox, info@farr-therapy.org. Many front office staff get that directly to their inbox. So if you have any specific questions for us, please reach out. I have a QR code of Pamela Ayers, her contact information. She's the president of Farr. You can find us on socials, Instagram, Facebook, and I'd love for any of you guys to get connected with us. So thank you so much for your time today, and we hope to hear from you.
Thanks, Bree.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you, everybody.